We're hearing this coming in: a Russian fighter jet colliding with an unmanned U.S. military drone. It happened in international airspace over the Black Sea. Reports say two Russian planes tried to intercept the U.S. drone by dumping fuel in front of it before the crash. A U.S. Air Force general says the drone was conducting, quote, routine operations when it was intercepted and struck by a Russian aircraft. The U.S. is calling Russia's actions unsafe and unprofessional. Let's bring in retired Major General Dennis Thompson, former NATO task force commander. He's in Montreal today. Good to have you with us, General Thompson. As always, your take on that fighter jet colliding with the U.S. drone.
I think clearly, Todd, that it's a direct provocation by the Russians to try and build on the narrative that their country is the country that's actually under attack, which is a little bit hard for us to swallow since we know that's clearly not the case. The question now becomes what is going to be the U.S. reaction? Clearly, they're upset, and they've mentioned that this was a reckless act, which it was. And they now have the option of whether they continue to put up drones in international airspace, because it's worth emphasizing that this occurred in international airspace, or do they send up other surveillance aircraft that are manned, because the Russians are unlikely to go after a manned aircraft, or do they put drones up and then provide a fighter escort from themselves and perhaps provoke an air-to-air battle between themselves and the Russians? So it'd be interesting to see how the U.S. reacts to this. Clearly, they're not going to back down. They're going to continue to use the international airspace and continue their surveillance as they have every right to do over the Black Sea, and probably hoovering up all sorts of electronic data from the war in Ukraine.
What sort of escalation do you think this is, potentially?
Well, again, I think this goes back to Mr. Putin trying to twist the narrative around that it's actually Russia that's under attack. So he will spin this story to say that, look, there's all these U.S. aircraft and NATO aircraft that are surveilling Ukraine and surveilling Russia, and therefore, clearly we need to push them back, and that this act was a warning to the U.S. that they have to stop actively surveillance over us. So I'm not sure where this will go. I imagine that the Americans are not going to back down, that they will continue the surveillance activities that they already have underway. It's just interesting to see if Russia will repeat this. But again, he owns the narrative inside of Russia, and he will spin this in a way that's completely absurd from a Western perspective.
We were talking about the attack in Kramatorsk on that apartment building, and just the latest example in civilian targets coming under fire. Bigger picture, you for quite a while have told me that you think the Russian counteroffensive or new offensive is already underway, but we're not really seeing them sort of making much gain in terms of ground. I mean, what do you think is happening, General Thompson?
Well, I believe and did believe and still believe that the Ukrainians are hanging on to Bakhmut not because it's militarily significant, but because it's causing the Russians to bleed themselves white on it. And I would ask you to recall in September of 2022 that all eyes were on Kherson. And yet the attack that the Ukrainians launched came out of the region of Kharkiv and snatched back a whole pile of Ukrainian territory. And so I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, okay, Ukraine makes a big public stand inside of Bakhmut, hangs onto it for as long as they possibly can, causes as much Russian attention to be focused on Bakhmut. Meanwhile, they're preparing a counterattack somewhere else in the spring of this year. So they have very cleverly not committed, overly committed reserves to this area, and they have continued to drive a wedge between the Wagner forces and the Russian regular military inside of Bakhmut as they dispute amongst themselves, and the casualties continue to mount at an alarming rate for the Russians, and yes, for the Ukrainians, but the ratio is totally out of whack in terms of the numbers. So I see this as a bit of a rerun of what we saw last year when everybody was focused on Kherson and the attack came out of somewhere else entirely different.
And just briefly, this sort of massive Russian offensive that people were bracing themselves for, we're just not really seeing that.
No.
What does that say?
It says they don't have the capacity. They burned up over 1,000 tanks in the first year of the war, multiple armored vehicles. They have fired a large proportion of their inventory of missiles, et cetera, which is why they had to turn around and rely on Iran. And while we're talking about that apartment building, the only thing that the Russians can't the only thing that the Ukrainians cannot knock down now with their air defense systems and their fighter aircraft are ballistic missiles and hypersonic cruise missiles. Otherwise, the other weapons that Russia can throw at them, they can defend themselves against. And so it becomes a race between how many of these high-end missiles the Russians can construct, and that number dwindles every day because they don't have access to the higher technology that they need, and the Ukrainians' ability to fix the damage done by those missiles. So I think what we're seeing here is what a lot of people are calling, it's a bit of a frozen conflict, but I really do believe that the Ukrainians are deliberately focusing the Russians on Bakhmut so that they can strike them somewhere else.
Always great to get your insights and tap into your experience, General Thompson. Thank you for this today.